It started like so many internet rabbit holes do, with a post no one could verify, but everyone wanted to believe. This one, specifically this one. This one right here, I saw it and I was like, no way. And then I was kind of like, totally possible. I don't know. Could totally be. I don't know. Anyway, sometime in the mid 2010s, a claim began circulating across forums and image boards that in 1986, inside a bunker buried deep within the Korean Demilitarized Zone, a deadly game took place. One where prisoners or defectors were forced to fight to the death. According to the post, this wasn't just some legend or misunderstood skirmish, it was organized and monitored, a psychological experiment disguised as a slaughter. The post was vague. No real names, no coordinates, no smoking gun, just a whisper that somewhere, just steps from the most heavily fortified border on Earth, a real-life Squid Game happened nearly 40 years before the Netflix series was ever dreamed up. For most, it was dismissed as internet fiction, but for others, the timing, 1986, the place, the DMZ, and the nature of North Korea's black sites made them ask, what if it wasn't fiction? What if something really did happen in a bunker? And what if the only reason we've never heard of it is because someone made sure we didn't? The Korean Demilitarized Zone, or DMZ, is one of the most surveilled yet strangely secretive places on Earth. It's 160 miles long, 2.5 miles wide, and bristling with landmines, barbed wire, and tension that never went away after the Korean War was paused in 1953. In theory, the DMZ is neutral ground, but in practice, it's filled with traps. There are small outposts where soldiers from the north and south stand literal inches apart. But then there's what lies underground. According to South Korean military reports and declassified CIA material from the 1970s and 80s, North Korea constructed at least 4 known infiltration tunnels underneath the DMZ. These weren't just rat holes. They were wide enough to move tanks, reinforced with concrete, and electrically wired. One tunnel discovered in 1978 was only 27 miles from Seoul and could deliver tens of thousands of troops in under an hour. Satellite imagery from the Cold War era reveals anomalous shapes beneath known outposts, most notably near the joint security area of Panmunjom, the border village where diplomacy meets dread. And while the South investigated and sealed some of the tunnels, others were never publicly confirmed. According to defectors and intelligence chatter, some of these underground spaces weren't designed for movement, but containment. In the early 2000s, a defector known as Mr. Kim gave a closed-door interview to South Korean intelligence. He had worked for the North Korean Ministry of State Security, the secret police responsible for political imprisonment, interrogation, and psychological control. He claimed that in 1986, an unauthorized experiment, air quotes, was conducted in an underground facility in the DMZ. Quote, "It was not recorded in official military files," he said. "It was done for loyalty testing and to study fear. Only senior officials observed it." Hello. Squid Games, thank you. All over there with their weird glass masks and stuff. According to Kim, between 6 to 12 individuals were selected, former South Korean defectors who were later deemed disloyal, naturally, captured foreign operatives, or political prisoners. They were drugged, transported, and locked in a sealed space beneath a diplomatic outpost. Quote, they were told, he said, that only one would leave alive. The winner would receive food, protection, and freedom. Weapons were left in the bunker. There were no instructions, no time limit, and everything was watched. Kim wasn't the only defector to speak of bizarre, cruel, psychological games. Multiple former North Korean guards interviewed by Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch between 1999 and 2010 described, quote, mind experiments conducted in Kwanli-so, or political prison camps. Prisoners were starved, left with confusing demands, or forced to inform on each other, sometimes falsely, just to gauge their desperation. One account spoke of a room where prisoners were made to sit in silence for days, and the last one to move was taken away. What happened to them was never seen. When viewed through that lens, the idea of a one-time underground game doesn't seem like fiction at all. It sounds like a field test. Reconstructing what may have happened inside the bunker in 1986 is like trying to solve a murder with nobody, just footprints and bloodstains no one wants to explain. But based on defector testimony and Cold War era psychology experiments conducted in North Korea, the layout likely followed a disturbing logic. A sealed space, maybe no bigger than a few rooms, buried under one of the lesser watched DMZ structures. 6 to 12 individuals, all stripped of personal belongings, identities erased. A handful of knives, blunt weapons, or modified tools, no firearms. No lights, no clock, no outside sound. Temporal disorientation. And most chilling, no rules. Just the whispered promise that survival meant freedom. That's nuts. Like, could you imagine, like, getting shoved into a room, pitch black, no sound, nobody talks, and it's just dead silent, and everybody's just, like, there. Everybody starts going a little wonky, and then you got, like, I don't know. I feel like that would be crazy to do that with multiple people. They're probably talking to each other like, come on, man, we ain't got to do this, but, like, still. The psychological warfare here wasn't in the weapons. It was in the silence. Imagine being locked underground with others just like you, not knowing if this is real, not knowing who to trust, knowing only one walks out. Some might wait, some might talk, but eventually someone would act. And the watchers above, they weren't just observing survival, they were studying human unraveling. At first glance, the idea sounds too sick to be real, until you realize that every single piece of it fits squarely within North Korea's historical methods and Cold War experimentation tactics. There are 3 working theories behind the purpose of this alleged 1986 game. Theory number 1, psychological warfare experiment. The Cold War wasn't just fought with bombs, it was fought with the mind. North Korea was obsessed with controlling thought, loyalty, and obedience. The regime conducted sleep deprivation tests, isolation studies, and even sensory experiments in prison camps. A kill or be killed scenario in a bunker? That would have given them raw data on how prisoners behave under absolute fear, how long it takes for trust to break, what the body does under starvation, and what survival looks like in silence. Theory number 2, elite entertainment. I can see that in North Korea. I can see it. A darker, less rational theory, but one supported by defector claims, suggests that the event may have been arranged for the amusement of high-ranking officials. Kim Jong-il, who held immense power at the time, was known to be obsessed with film and staging dramas for private viewings. Defectors claimed he forced actors to recreate war scenes and executions. It's not unthinkable that he or others like him might orchestrate a deathmatch under the guise of a test and treat it like theater. Theory number 3: disposal of problematic prisoners. Perhaps the simplest theory is also the most brutal. This was a method of getting rid of unwanted prisoners without trial or public execution. The promise of freedom was a lie. The winner, air quotes, was just the last loose end to clean up. A psychological culling wrapped in silence. So did it happen? We may never get confirmation, but here's what we do know. CIA files declassified in 1999 confirmed that by 1986, the U.S. had satellite evidence of anomalous underground construction on the North Korean side of the Joint Security Area. South Korea's military had discovered and mapped 4 known infiltration tunnels, but privately acknowledged they believed in at least 10 that existed. In 2003, an NSA leak revealed a 1980s-era intelligence blind spot in a 400-meter radius within the central DMZ, including a location directly under observation post Ulet, where surveillance data often dropped for hours at a time. That's interesting. And most compelling, in 2006, a journalist from South Korea's Chosun Ilbo interviewed a defector who claimed that an underground operation took place in 1986. A test. Only one came back, but he didn't speak. No footage, no names, just whispers that line up with geography, timing, and known behavior. Sometimes the absence of proof is exactly what a regime wants. One of the most chilling elements of this story is the idea that someone survived the game. But survival in North Korea doesn't mean freedom. It just means you're alive, for now. One defector, a former guard who later fled the North, claimed he heard whispers about a man who returned from the test in 1986. The story went that he was never quite the same. He stopped speaking, ate only in private, and slept with the lights on, when he could sleep at all. They said he spent weeks in debriefing, monitored by intelligence officers, poked and prodded for information, but no one ever got a full account from him. He either couldn't speak about it or wouldn't. Some say he was sent to another facility in the mountains. Others say he simply disappeared. Another version of the tale suggests something even darker, that there were multiple survivors, that the game didn't end with one man standing, but with 2 or 3, and the regime had to choose which one to keep alive. The rest, well, eliminated, buried, and forgotten. But perhaps the most disturbing theory is that no one survived at all, and the whole story was crafted afterward by those who watched. A post-mortem experiment meant not just to test the people inside the bunker, but to test those of us who heard about it. Think about that. And we watched a whole show about it and glorified it. And it's on Netflix. Decent show, not gonna lie. What if the tale was planted deliberately, whispered through defectors, leaked online, timed perfectly to resurface during a wave of survival-obsessed media? What if we are the final subjects, monitored to see how we react? It's the kind of idea that makes you look twice at your screen, because in this game, maybe watching is the point. It's easy to assume stories like this inspired shows like Squid Game, but what's more disturbing is that Squid Game may not be an exaggeration. It may be a mirror. The themes are eerily aligned. Desperate individuals pitting against each other, a faceless audience watching for control or amusement, and the illusion of choice when the system already decided who dies. Even more directly, the rumor often gets confused with the story of Unit 684, a real-life South Korean Black Ops program where volunteers were trained to assassinate North Korean leaders, only to be slaughtered by their own government when the mission was scrapped. Death games, political expendability, secrets buried on both sides of the 38th parallel. Maybe Squid Game isn't fiction. Maybe it's dramatized memory of things both sides tried to forget. This story, real or not, stays with you. And that's the part we can't explain away. Because even if this bunker deathmatch never happened, it could have. Even part of the narrative is built on the known pieces of truth. Governments conducting human experiments, regimes eliminating political enemies in secret, war zones hiding atrocities under the cover of diplomacy, people turning survival into entertainment. That's why the story haunts us. It's not the brutality. We've seen that. It's not even the secrecy. We've come to expect that too. It's the surgical plausibility, the way this lines up with everything we already know, and yet still shocks us. And it raises questions that hit far beyond the DMZ. How many bunkers like this exist around the world, in deserts, in prisons, in offshore black sites? How many games are played in silence while we scroll TikTok and binge Netflix? Why do stories like this go viral? Because deep down we recognize the pattern. We know systems will always try to test the edges of cruelty. And if no one watches, they go further. That's the final irony. We think of the watchers as villains, the officials who looked down into the bunker and took notes while people killed each other. But we're the watchers. Maybe we'll never find the exact location of the bunker. Maybe it's long gone, collapsed, paved over, denied. But until we stop creating systems that reward silence and feed off desperation, we'll keep building new ones. And the next bunker won't be in Korea. It'll be wherever people are disposable and no one's paying attention. And at the end of the day, when you think about all the stuff that does happen in the world without people seeing it, knowing about it, hearing about it, talking about it, you kind of have to factor in the fact that there's just way too much we don't know about anywhere, at any time, or any government, or any billionaire for that matter. So let it be known that there's way more we don't know, and there's probably way more we don't want to know. This has been Cracked Relic, and this has been my coverage on the real Squid Games, which all started just from me seeing a Facebook post, which very much so could be completely fake. But you know, whatever. This was fun. Thank you for watching, and as always, sources will be in the description and coming up after this. Thank you for watching.